All right. Hey, can you hear me? Yeah, maybe a little bit. It's possible. Anyway, going live now. If anybody's jumping on, they're jumping on. If not, I'm just saying it to myself. But this one, I wanted to go over the Errol Spence, Danny Garcia fight, a little bit more into it, and in this way, I can kind of give my hey, what's up, Nick? Kind of give my thoughts on it and where I think it's going to go. The biggest thing for me in this fight isn't whether or not Danny Garcia is coming in perfect shape and all that good stuff. I'm really concerned with Errol Spence. And with Errol Spence, looking at it, we see that he is coming off a really, really bad car accident. And they said there was no swelling on the brain. They said there was no massive injuries, but he did suffer some head injuries. He had to have some dental work done. There were some things going on there, and who knows, busted ribs, stuff, and what else could have been affected from that accident. And I think that's a huge thing that people kind of back off from, or they don't really want to talk about as much, is that, how damaging an accident can be and how long it affects you and how it can keep you from actually doing what you need to do. So you've got a guy that's super elite. They're talking about he didn't get to start training until February for doing this. And a little back into it, he bloated up to over 190 pounds. Spence did, before, they got back into training. So I'm really anxious to see this weigh-in today. Have they already had it? Maybe, Anyway, I want to check it out and see how he looks to see if he's in shape, in fighting shape, because when you start talking about the welterweight, that's 147. So you're looking at him cutting 45 pounds. Now, granted, it's over, 9 months, basically, got from February. We're already in December. So there's been plenty of time for him to get in shape. But how much out of shape did he get from the end of that fight in October of 19? Then he had the injury 2 weeks after. So you're looking November, December, January, and February. So in those 4 months, now granted, when they weigh in at 147, they probably rehydrate to almost 160 anyway. So we'll give him that. So he got up and gained an extra 32 pounds. So I guess when you say that, it doesn't sound as bad as what it could be, right? So, but ultimately, that's a big factor in this fight and what has me worried about. What do I think about Jake Paul challenging Conor McGregor? I think Jake Paul's out of his mind and is going to get chin checked, kind of like Nate Robinson did. Jake Paul's I don't believe he's an MMA fighter, is he? I don't think so. Thinking that without injury, pick Spence all day, every day. Absolutely, Marcodian Elite. 100% with that. If this was, if you haven't seen my video, check my video out. But thank you for watching the video. If you haven't got that, done, and he hasn't had any fights since. What do we got? Danny is tailor-made for Spence, though. And that's the thing. If there's any positive that we can see for Spence coming into this fight, while Danny Garcia is a tremendous fighter, it's the fact that he is 100% tailor-made for a 90% Spence. Spence, if he is even close to the speed that he was in the Sean Porter fight, then what we're going to see with him and what he does to Danny Garcia could be pretty special. Let's see what we got. Yeah, how is he going to take a punch? Has he been? Now the thing after the accident that they had there was they checked his brain and everything, and they didn't see any bleeding on the brain or any injuries there. But he did have the dental work, so it wasn't like he was getting punched legit in the face for quite a while after that. Maybe that's why they didn't start training until February, is they wanted him to be fully healed. But like anybody will tell you, after you get injured, it's really hard for you to just get back into something. When I tore my bicep, oh man, it was like forever before I was really willing to throw a good hook again into a bag. I mean, I completely tore my right bicep, and I was like, yeah, I'm good with that. And even to this day, and it's been almost 15, 20 years, until I get it really warmed up, I really have issue with wanting to, throw hard and stuff. And the fact he didn't take the tune-up fight. He should have took the tune-up fight. I mean, my God, if you look at some of the fighters that Danny Garcia fought, they were like joke fighters. I was doing some notes as I was looking on there. And, the Rod Salka fight, when he fought him, as an actual title defense, Salka wasn't even ranked. But then I believe it was Al Heyman. You got to see it. It's Teddy Atlas did a video on that, and he's awesome with it. And then there were some other things too. Let me look. How will he take a punch? That exactly, conditioning. How is he going to be able to go the distance and do all of that? I mean, the great thing about the way Spence fights is he gets in such shape he doesn't get hit as much, and the way Garcia fights, being the counterpuncher and not the aggressor, I think that's going to help him in that. You just hope that let's see, totally agree about the injury. Oh, the AC joint in the shoulder. Yeah, man. How does that feel, afterward, before you can pop out the jab and get that going and stuff, when you start looking at that kind of stuff, and you got to build it back up again, and you got to get all those muscles around it. And I would think that's the same way with fighting and stuff. Now, they said it was easy for him to make weight. That concerns me too a little bit, because as anyone knows, when you work out a lot, let's say I actually started working out again and I get down and I'm around 240 or whatever and stuff, but you build up a lot of muscle. And if I get hurt or I stop working out, but then I diet really well, yeah, maybe I can get down to 220. That ain't happening, but let's just say it does. But you've lost that muscle that you've built up in the neck, in your, in your traps and stuff like that, to where you could get knocked out. And for him, granted, Mikey Garcia, not Mikey. I mean, when we talk about Danny, I mean, I watched Spence beat up Mikey Garcia earlier, so that's why he was on the brain. But when you look at Danny Garcia, he's only around that 50%. So his knockouts really come because he hits somebody so flush with the counter and stuff like that. So do we have anything else there? Oh, I want to bring up, if you haven't seen it, you have, and I don't recommend this for anybody. You have a lot of fighters that have their relatives that are involved. Mayweather was famous for it, where he had his Uncle Roger, R.I.P. to him. And then, his actual father, Floyd, in his corner and stuff, and a lot. And they've always had mouths and things like that. And that was always cool. But at the same time, you don't want people in your corner writing checks for you. Okay? Garcia's father, I believe is Angel, was on, and he was making predictions about the fight, about what Garcia was going to do to Spence. And he said he looked at Spence and he looked through him and he saw that he didn't have that soul anymore. It was gone. He wasn't able to. He's just a shell of himself, is what he was saying. And then he went on to say that his boy, Danny Garcia, was going to knock Spence out in the second round. So that got me thinking, let me check. Let me see the last time Danny Garcia has knocked anybody out that early. Now, he knocked Morales out in the fourth. He knocked Khan out in the fourth, but that wasn't the second. And again, I had to find that Rod Salka guy. Who's Rod? Anyway, he wasn't even ranked, and he fought this bum, and then got a quick knockout on him. And then before that, you had to go all the way to Figueroa 6-7 years ago. John Figueroa, who had a losing record. He was like 7-8. And he fought this dude, it was like his 25th fight. You're 25 fights in, you shouldn't be fighting bums, Anyway, he fought this guy and he knocked him out in the second round. So, I mean, Spence at 10% is better than those guys ever were. So saying 2% could light a fire under Spence. Spence already said the reason why he took this fight was because he felt like he needed to, like he had to take a tougher fight. Like he couldn't just take an easy way out kind of deal. He had to go hard. That way he knew it would force him to train at a certain level. Keith Thurman said Danny had the heaviest hands he faced yet. Well, I mean, if you look at a lot of Thurman's fights, I don't know. Does that make Thurman? And Thurman got the win, so maybe is he just giving him a compliment? Because, if you're only 55%, knockout, you're not that one punch type of guy. Maybe it's just the fact that he was getting countered by Garcia, and a counter, has the great thing about a counter is it uses the other person's momentum as well. That's why they're so devastating, is you catch somebody as they're moving into your punch as opposed to going away from it. So there could be a little more into that than what Thurman's saying. Thurman just doesn't want to say that Garcia touched him up a little bit, and he's giving him credit there. Oh, Darkheart, you're out? It could well be a compliment. Yeah. You never know with fighters. They're going to say that because, let's face it, that would be another big money fight for Thurman, if they did kind of like a rematch with Danny Garcia, because Garcia is going to pull it in. I mean, you question the guy. I mean, Garcia fought that Ivan the terrible guy, Redkern or something. Anyway, he fought him in the eliminator for this fight, and there are other guys out there. If anything, how he didn't have to fight Sean Porter again, because Sean Porter, I think, has been by far the best against Spence of any of the fights that Spence has been in. People's champ, what's going on? Awesome. Yeah. So you have these fights going on that you would love to see again. And Spence brought up a great thing when if you watch their final interview for the fight before they fight tomorrow. And Spence had talked about how every fight, he was getting a little more lax after the fights. He was taking a little bit more time off between the fights. And a bad thing about that is if you're too good, that's what made Floyd Mayweather so great. And I know people are going to go, oh God, is he never took a day off. When you looked at his weight, he never varied. He wasn't more than like 5 pounds away from his fighting weight pretty much at any given time. Like he was always ready to go. The guy always works out. He might eat like crap for the camera. The camera's on me. Okay, I'm going to eat some KFC. But trust me, his workouts and stuff and everything that he's doing, he was always in shape. But you got a guy like Errol Spence, and Mayweather he's not the norm. He is the exception when it comes to that stuff. Most people, they fight, they win, they celebrate, and some people do it way too much. Look at what who's it, Ruiz, right? That dude came out and he was bigger than I was when he got in that ring, and you're like, oh my God, what are you doing, dude? You're fighting Anthony Joshua in a rematch, and you smoked out Joshua when you came in shape and you fought him, and then you come rolling in 50 pounds heavier, and that's kind of what Spence was alluding to, is what he was doing those couple fights up to when he finally beat Porter. And then obviously he had problems as he after that fight, and you saw the horrible car wreck that he was in. And if you haven't seen that, whew, the car doing all the flips and everything as it hit the curb and caught air. And I guess he didn't have a seatbelt on and got thrown from it. I don't see how he didn't get the head injuries, though. They interviewed him a couple weeks after the fight, and he sounded a little touched. Now, I know it could be, don't get mad at me when I say this, but, a Southern accent sometimes can have a drawl to it, and it slows the speech down, and it has absolutely nothing to do with a person's intelligence or what they're able to do. Does that make sense? It just sounded, but he sounded Riddick Bowe slow after the Holyfield fight kind of stuff. He was, check out Riddick Bowe's speech patterns, and you'll see him changing over time and stuff. I mean, look here. Koji, all right, man. Black Star, Crawford versus Spence. Oh, my God. Oh. Black Star, dude, why? Why would you ask a question like that right now? That's, I tell you, I will make that video or dream video kind of thing after this fight. I have to see what Spence looks like, because he's definitely going to be going in against 100% Danny Garcia, right? He's definitely going to have going up against a person that is at the very top of their game. Now, every time you see a fighter and they ask him how your training camp was, they always say, "Oh, it was amazing. It was awesome." And then you see him get on the scale and you're like, dude's got a gut, man. Right? We saw the Tyson Roy Jones Jr. thing, right? You saw that? You didn't pay money for that, right? Koji, you bring up a thing. Getting used to his new teeth. The fact that he did suffer mouth injuries. Maybe his jaw was jacked up a little bit and they were kind of trying to keep it in place. So he had to talk like this. And it kind of sounded like maybe it really wasn't all there. So, yeah, I could definitely see that. I'll have to re-watch that video again to see if maybe that was the problem there. Losing some teeth, needing work done, speech impediment, trying to get used to it. Absolutely. Can have a lisp that wasn't there before. Yeah, maybe so. Absolutely, because things are moved. I was looking in that last fight, and it looks like some teeth are back, and one was up a little further. Like if you're watching it facing the screen on his, it would have been on his left side. One of the tooth was sticking out, and some were further back. So it's kind of a little all jacked up. I don't know. I don't know. I'm really worried about the accident. That's the biggest thing that I have. All right. That Crawford Spence thing, Blackstar, that's I can't, my mind, I'm like, let's do this fight. Let's get through this one. Let's see how it goes, how he looks, how it does. But my God, you're talking Bud Crawford. Yeah, a guy you got two elite southpaw fighters, and then you got Bud who's elite when he goes right as well, and he figures people out. And he's like, that makes my brain hurt thinking about it. And I'm anxious to be able to look at that. Yep, fair enough. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be fair enough. So we have other fights that might be on the horizon that are coming up. Who knows? With COVID, we don't. I mean, the UFC kind of got it right. They said, we're just going to do a fight island, have everybody there, do massive testing, and give them out a couple weeks, make sure, they don't have to worry about COVID and stuff. Boxing, it's a little bit harder to do because they're not a federation. They're not a company. They're not all under one umbrella. Every fighter is a different, their own employee in a sense. They're all 1099 workers, if you want to think of it that way. And they're all their own different representatives. So I don't know if they'll ever be, we'll ever see, the bigger fights come up, at least not for a while. But this one is really, I'm just shocked that it's happening. But like I said, Spence said he needed to be motivated. see, what else did I have on here I want to talk about? There was a lot of respect back and forth between the fighters. Obviously, Angel Garcia had limited respect for Spence, and I think that that could get his boy punched a couple extra times. A little more stank on it than you'd like to see. Any other questions or anything? Hagler said it best, the silk sheets. Yeah. Hagler, one of my favorite fighters of all time. If you've watched my videos from 10 years ago or anything at all like that, Hagler, one of my absolute favorites. And, there's a time where it's just like, what are you getting up for? You're already the best, so that injury could and might possibly very well, could have relit that fire, the rededication. He talked about being just so grateful that he was able to spend time with his kids, just got a new baby, and then he mentioned his girlfriend. Maybe it's the same mother to all the other kids. I don't know. But, he's talking about trying to get his life on track and getting and being really appreciative and gracious for everything. So, that's a bonus there. Yeah. And that's true. I mean, Al Heyman, Koji brings up a good thing about Garcia taking the fight because he doesn't believe Errol Spence is going to be 100%. He thinks there's really something in there. And then Al Heyman not really willing to make that take the risk with Spence if Spence wasn't ready. And Al Heyman's a money guy. If it's not going to make him money, or maybe he sees this, maybe Al Heyman's looking further down the road and saying, maybe I have a trilogy here. Get Spence now. We can use the excuse that he was injured, have the rematch. Spence does what Spence does, and then they do a trilogy fight out of it, and everybody makes a whole lot of money. Could that happen? I don't know. I mean, did any of you pay to see the Tyson-Roy Jones fight? Like, that wasn't like one of the biggest money grabs ever, once they started throwing all the stipulations in, and then Roy said, you know what? I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to slug with Tyson. I'm going to try and tie him up every single chance I get, every breath he takes. I'll be hugging you, kind of deal. Joshua versus Fury. Oh, man. That one right there. Vintage problem. And Jacob. Yeah, it's good to be back. Vintage problem, Joshua versus Fury. If I was going to do a prediction on that one, based off of what we've seen from Tyson Fury and the fact that we know he's just been getting better, and he exposed Deontay Wilder for what he was, which was a one-punch guy, and he also imposed his will on him. I mean, you're looking at Tyson Fury, who's going to be 30 pounds heavier than Anthony Joshua. And Joshua, if he's not on any of the Mexican supplements, he drops to about 240, 242. Still a very dominant guy, but it seems to lose a little bit of an edge to him when I don't think he's on the Mexican supplements anymore. And if I was going with that, I think Fury boxes his ears off because he's different. Like, Joshua can box and all of that. Fury's a 147-pound fighter wrapped in a 287-pound man. It's not right. It's not right. Hey, DJ Suave. Yeah. Well, you have a little one, and it kind of takes you away from doing all the stuff. And, as the little one gets older and everything, that's when I stepped out. I backed away, it was the birth of my daughter and everything. And look at this. Come here just for a second. Oh, my God. You remember when she was rolling over? Yeah. All right. Get out of here. Go on. I'm just kidding. She's going to listen to me. But but yeah, 8 years, right? So I've been kind of off and on and not really consistent after putting out 500 videos. So yeah, we're gonna get back to this. Fury is a fighter. Joshua's an athlete. I think that's a yeah, little ragu. Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. You've got Joshua that yeah, he's very athletic and he can move around, but boxing isn't like his sport in a sense. And I think, but how can you say that if he's won a title, multiple titles, and stuff like that? But Joshua's shown that he struggles with elusive fighters, right? Unfortunately, a fighter like Klitschko, who was in his 40s. So, and my love for Klitschko. So let me throw that out there before I start talking. Just let you know, as one of my dudes, right? It's huge on Klitschko. In his 40s, but he was a boxer, right? And he had the punishing stuff, but he wasn't necessarily the most active when it came to footwork and movement and stuff like that. So Anthony Joshua is the newer type of heavyweight who moves a little bit more and still has the boxing ability and all of that stuff. And the old lion against the young lion kind of thing, And, Joshua got him at 40. Do I think Joshua would have done that earlier? I don't know. Maybe so, because their fighting styles are different. They showed the Klitschko showed that you could box. They brought boxing back again to the heavyweight division and showed that distance fighting. And then Tyson Fury comes along and throws a whole monkey wrench into everything with his fighting style, with how he moves, the rhythm he can get into, and just the elusiveness that he has, and how he just so effortlessly that he does it. It's truly been an amazing thing to watch and to follow his story. I don't think I could be a bigger fan now than I hated him. Let's be honest. He beat up my Klitschko, man. He put me in a depression for like 6 months. And but to be able to see what he's done and come back from the depression and speak out about it and be a spokesman for it, and his positivity, but at the same time still saying, hey, there could be times where you just don't feel good. You're going to have bad days and good days. So I think I really respect him. He's really moved up the list with me, Fury, and watching him fight. And when he rose from the dead against Wilder, and everybody saw that and felt that. And I know if you were a fight fan at all, you got the goosebumps. You said, oh my God. And he rose up and he beat the count. No matter what anybody says, he beat the count. And man, how could you not be a fan of his? Let's see what we got. Do I support fighting going ahead with no fans? Yes. I support it only because the window for fighting for your peak and everything is very short. Your typical, you probably hit your peak around 27 and then at 32. So you got like a 5-year window to do something in. And if you're talking about losing 20% of your absolute prime, think about that. Now, look at a fighter like Canelo Alvarez, okay? Now, he had 8 billion fights by the time he was 20, right? And when Mayweather fought him, he was, 22, 23 maybe? He wasn't the man he is now. You know what I mean? He's filled out a little more, a little more solid. He's grown into himself. He fought him when he was young, so he wasn't in his prime. Canelo's in his prime now, and I wouldn't fight him. So I'm glad that they're fighting. I think the pay-per-view thing is good. I just don't think they should go with, hey, let's do $70 now when we know so many people are suffering, from lost income and things like that. I mean, I know everybody's hurting. So why don't you do a little help out there, man? If they dropped the fight to $20, I would be watching every one of them. But $70, I'm kind of like, nah, I don't know about that, bro. Let's see what we got here. Do I think Triple G get another Canelo rematch? Oh, yeah. Well, Canelo's stepping out of that. And wasn't he in, what is it, DAZN? Wasn't he in like a 10-fight contract with them for $180 million? Or it was a big money thing. I'm probably way low on the money. It was probably like 300 and some million. Stepping away for a Triple G fight. If the interest is there, if you're asking about it, so that is definitely showing interest. Yeah, I would. Why wouldn't they do that? Why wouldn't they do a third fight there? I mean, Pacquiao fought Marquez 4 times before Marquez finally got him, just because those fights were so close and competitive and stuff like that. And I think a Triple G Canelo would be a great one. Yeah, vintage. I agree with you. You can hear everything now, and I think that's a pro and a con. Because you got some guys that are really good in the gym, but then when they get in front of all those people, they're not that good anymore. So maybe this will help some of those guys, get in there and kind of get their confidence to be able to fight in front of people when that happens again. Maybe June of next year or something like that. Let's see. Oh. Kalia Jawad Farid. If I got it wrong, I apologize. Yeah. Oh, we singing up in here. Oh, yeah. Yeah, when you see him rise, you feel it, man. Let's see. Thoughts on the future of Dubois? I don't know if I have I don't have an educated thing on Dubois. So give me a little bit what you're thinking with that, DJ Suave. Is it Dubois? Dubois, right? Yeah. I would try to Google it or something, but then it would throw me off, Okay. Dubois. All right. So what else we got? My big thing was I wanted to, if you missed it, when I talked about it as we were going through, the biggest concern that we have for all of this is the injury that Spence suffered and how he's going to come back from that, because it's such a major thing. I still stick with, this isn't like a special where I'm like, no, man, I think Garcia's going to knock him out. That ain't happening here. I still think Spence pulls off the decision. I just think it's I got to give props to him for taking such a dangerous fight as his first fight back. I mean, this is the longest layoff he's had, so we're going to have to see how he reacts with the ring rust and everything. I mean, there's so many factors, man, that are going into this that it's got to have you wondering. It's got to have you worried. And I'm just anxious for that. I would love to see, Marcodian Elite there. Where does Wilder go if he doesn't get the third Fury fight? And if we're honest, I mean, do we need to see a third Fury fight? That thing going out on face him. I'll get to that in a second. I see what you're saying there. Wilder, I think, is in a dangerous spot because, one, not a lot of people are going to want to fight him because he's got that one-punch knockout ability. And if you don't have that boxing ability to bully the bully, to get in there and do that, he's probably going to knock you out. And there's only one fighter that I've seen that can do that, and that's Fury. because Fury's 6'9" and 300 pounds, right? So he's able to do that, and he's got the reach to stay back far enough, and he can exploit the fact that Wilder only has, in reality, that right hand from God, right? That right hand that's just electric, and if it touches you, you go to sleep. I don't see very many fighters like. Are we going to see Joshua take that risk? Is he going to step up and do it? I don't know. I think that's where Wilder is going to have some problems trying to find fights. Maybe he gets in there and I don't know, gets with Povetkin again or something. Something like that. Maybe. I don't know. Let's see. Can Pacquiao beat both? No. Are you talking about Pacquiao beating Danny Garcia or Errol Spence? Maybe the Danny Garcia I'll give you. I mean, Pacquiao, for what Pacquiao's doing and still maintaining his speed and all of his ability and stuff, because there was definitely that dip after Marquez had him snoring, dust off the mat and lint off the mat. He's really been able to kind of almost have a second career, if that's possible. Or is it a third career? He's done a lot. So I don't think he beats Spence, but I think Garcia, maybe, because Pacquiao has that in-out, still has a lot of the footwork and the speed and stuff. And man, that dude hits you from weird angles, and it's hard to counterpunch from someone at a weird angle. It's easy if somebody's coming straight in, but if they're off to the side, it's harder. It's just harder to get those hits in on somebody. Thoughts on the current wave of YouTube boxers? Are they boxers? It's one thing to wait. So back in my high school, way back when I was fighting and doing all that stuff, there was a kid that was going around and he would have kids come over and they would box in his backyard, and his dad would ref and all this other stuff, and he was beating up a lot of kids, and that's great. It's not great, because you shouldn't be doing it. The only time you should be doing it is in a ring with some kind of like professionals around you, people that have a lot of experience, because it can be a dangerous sport if you get hit wrong, right? So this kid was going around and smacking around a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing. So yeah, he's building up a rep, and people are liking it. And I took offense to it, and I said, well, why don't you fight me then, if you're going to fight all these other people? And I'd been out of boxing. I don't know. I hadn't been out long at all. I was still probably 180 at the time. Fought light heavy. Don't. And so, we fight, we box. I wouldn't call it boxing. I just beat him around, and told his dad to put the gloves on too. He wouldn't, but whatever. And, so that was kind of like that. And that's what I see with YouTube boxers. They're kind of like that dude that beat up a couple dudes that didn't know how to fight in the backyard, kind of like backyard wrestlers. They're not really wrestlers. They're just kind of that. It's a very, very rare thing when you have someone like a Kimbo Slice that managed to come out of a backyard kind of thing, or, the BMF, man. Jorge Masvidal, to come out of something like that and actually be really good at it outside, against people that really do it, kind of thing. All right, Patrick. Yeah, that Hatton Mayweather thing, yeah, it kind of put me on the map a little bit. I think that was, yeah. Because I think I called the round. It was like 10th round or something like that. Yes, she bought me Guinness merch when she was in Ireland. I couldn't go. So she goes. She doesn't. Well, she likes Guinness. But she actually goes to Ireland, brings me back an authentic Guinness shirt from Ireland, from the brewery. And that was awesome. Yeah, thank you, Patrick. Thank you for sticking around all these years and stuff. I think Fury, phase him. I hope that's right. I think Fury, if Fury and Joshua they get together and it actually happens, it's I don't know if it's like an ugly stepchild because Anthony Joshua is a good-looking guy. I'll give him that, but I think it's not going to go Joshua's way, and Joshua got starched by Ruiz. Fury hits a lot harder, and now, oh my God, I think the biggest thing that gets missed is that Fury is with Kronk boxing. It's a different style of fighting. And I think a lot of the new age fighters and stuff, they don't know about Kronk anymore. It kind of got lost a little bit with Manny passing away, Emmanuel Sheward passing away. But Kronk fighting, that aggression, that aggressive way of fighting, that we used to call going out to try and put a hurt on someone. Every punch you threw was with bad intentions, and that's what that Kronk boxing is going to bring to Fury. And we saw that against Deontay Wilder, where he got beat pillar to post. I mean, it could have been so much worse than what it was, And I think Joshua takes a proper beating in that one. Da Vinci 7. Hey, man. Thank you. Love back. I'm just happy that people actually are on the feed, liking it and stuff like that, and have stuck around as I'm 40 minutes into this thing, talking about it. Proper unbiased. Yeah, I do my best to be as unbiased as possible. That's why I don't. I always joke about it. I don't bet on the fights because I don't want any bias in there. If I think there's a fighter, and I've called upsets before, long time ago. A lot of people gave me, some grief about it, but that's, you're doing something right. If you're not always going with what people think, you're always trying to be as honest as possible when you're giving a breakdown and your opinions on the fights. So thank you for noticing that and appreciating that. Thank you. Kronk style is a nightmare for square-footed fighters. Absolute 100% fact on that. If you're just in kind of like that one spot and kind of move around just a little bit, you're in a lot of trouble with Kronk fighters. HBO boxing was so sad. So sad that that it's gone away. HBO was a massive brought boxing, in a sense, to the world. It really opened up so everyone could see these fighters, and it made it like global. And now that it's done, I think Showtime still does it, Fox. But when they got out of it, I think that's a huge mistake on their part. But ESPN has picked up. They've picked up some more of the fighting, not necessarily the main titles. Oh, Lamont Peterson. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, you could see the making of him coming up, and he was really a kind of a special. I enjoyed his style and the way he was fighting, and seeing that, and to be able to pick it out. When I used to do the prospect perspective videos, which I'll probably get back into doing those again, obviously, and seeing these young up and coming fighters and saying, hey, I think these guys kind of have a shot. And if you look at some of the fighters that I did prospect perspectives on, they did pretty good. They came out of it. Jean-Luc, yeah. Well, I had a lot of videos a long time ago, and doing it. Big fan from the UK. Well, why did I disappear for so long? We talked about it earlier. I got into with the birth of my daughter and everything. I was like, I'm going to spend as much time as possible with her. And with the videos, I was putting out 3 or 4 a week at least. And in doing that, because I wanted to make them right, I would spend For every video you saw, if it was only 15 minutes or 20 minutes long, I would spend anywhere from 4 to 6 hours on each one of those videos minimum, watching tape on fighters, breaking them down, seeing any little thing that maybe somebody isn't noticing, trying to give that most accurate prediction I could. And when she came along and you got this little baby, teeny tiny, beautiful little infant there, I wanted to just devote as much time as I could with her. And I was working 2 jobs, and I was going to school full time, first to get my bachelor's and then to get my master's degree in as an intervention specialist in education. So, and now I'm kind of getting out of that. She's getting older. She's watching Minecraft videos right now. So I'm kind of being able to get back into it. And if I'm honest, for the last 7 years, while I haven't been on the screen, right, I've been announcing for Gem City Roller Derby. So I became an announcer for that. And I've been doing that and going to tournaments. And this year I was going to be an announcer for the the men's World Roller Derby events that were out in St. Louis, but COVID canceled everything. So I kind of got into that, but I've always loved fighting. And so that, was always something I knew I would come back to do. And I'm just glad that a lot of you have hung around and haven't dropped me from the subscription. So when I do make a video, it comes up and you're able to, we can have that interaction again. We can talk again. We can talk. Let's see. Tyson looked amazing. Yeah. Tyson looked amazing. Yeah. He looked good. And he's 53, 54, 53, somewhere in there. And, and Roy was fighting pretty recently. I think 2018 was Roy Jones Jr.'s last fight. And so, he was training, and hey, if you're going to pay me a couple $1 million to hug somebody for 5 rounds, I'll do that. I'll get in shape. I'll do it. No, but he really is taking care of himself. He lit that fire again, got excited about it and stuff. And, I think it shows that people really want to see that old school, that grit, kind of thing coming back, and it's just really hard with boxing or any combat sport, to have that comeback, you could do it in tennis, baseball, stuff like that. I think, old man baseball is softball, right? If you can't do baseball anymore, you do softball. So you still have that, and you can bowl till you're 8 billion years old. Same thing with golf. But what makes it really special is that they were even able to get into the ring, and we got to see these legends that we grew up with and seeing them come up, and you're like, yeah, that feels good. It gives you that nostalgia thing, and you're like, hey, maybe I could do it again. I can't do it again. Let's see. Do I see Spence walking down Garcia like Peterson did? Oh. I don't know. I don't know if I see that. Oh, we'll have to see how Spence is. What I see with Spence is keeping distance and counterpunching the counterpuncher. He's going to put that pressure on. I don't necessarily see him walking him down. And I only say that if this was where he didn't have the injury and he had only had 4 months off, 5 months off, he stayed consistent fighting. I could easily see Spence trying to impose his will on him because he knows that Garcia doesn't have that one-punch knockout power. He's got the speed. He's got the reach. He's got a lot of advantages over Danny Garcia. So could I see him walking him down? If that was the scenario, yes, but I don't see that in this fight. I hope that answers the question there. Okay, Dennis McCann. I will check out Dennis McCann there, and we'll see how he does and what he's going to do. Write that down. Let's see what we got. Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah, I did that. And then every year for the last 6 years, I think, we always do a shear the beard at school. So I grow it out for an entire year. And then we would do a thing to raise donations for my school for food and stuff, because we have a lot of impoverished students and family. We would do a shear the beard. So we would do that to raise canned goods and money for needy families in our school. So yeah, thank you for remembering that. Yeah. Oh, I used to have hair, and then I started going bald. Started getting all thin. Yeah, started getting all bald and everything. So, and wife said I looked like an old rocker that was just trying to hold on by keeping his hair long, just trying. And she goes, "Yeah, you need to cut that." And I'm like, "Fine." So then I grow it out another way. Let's see. Maj Khan, yeah, man. Been around a long time. Ali Marciano versus Mike Tyson. Ah, he did. Sounds like one of those. That was like a round table, wasn't it? Weren't all the greats like heavyweight champions and stuff sitting around a round table, and they were discussing old fighters and who they thought would win and what they would do and stuff like that. And man, ZZ Top, yeah. We look at the fighters, and obviously you had Muhammad Ali, who he had the ropes and did the rope dope and stuff, and could get far enough away from fighters. And Muhammad Ali got hit by Foreman. And Foreman hit like an absolute Mack truck, and still has one of the greatest knockout percentages of all time. And he was able to do it, and he was a boxer. And that's the one thing we know with even a prime Mike Tyson. Well, we say that, but then we don't know, did we really see a prime Mike Tyson? And I stay with me on this, because, we had Customato, when he had Kevin Rooney, when he had Teddy Atlas, he had that whole, like the triangle, the trifecta of awesomeness around him. And then Customato passed, and Tyson, won the title, all that stuff. And then you had the fallout with Rooney, and then Atlas was eventually gone, and that was all right before I believe Tyson was in his absolute prime. So I don't think we ever really truly got to see as much awesomeness as we saw with Tyson. I think we were robbed of a couple years on top of him going to jail and all that stuff. But, that happened with Ali as well. He lost some prime years, but Ali, I think, made the most of his prime than Tyson did. So I think Tyson missed out on a lot of his prime. So I would probably go with Ali over that. And my love for Marciano. Why you got to bring that up? And Marciano for his time was the champ, right? But, I did a video on heavyweights, and are they bigger now than what they were then? They are definitely bigger now. I mean, Mike Tyson at 5'10", weighing 220 pounds would have been very, very big. He'd have been pretty huge, like bigger than Sonny Liston huge back in those days. So, I mean, I would probably say I'm going to go with the boxer on this one overall and say Muhammad Ali. Just don't tell any Italian that I said that. And we're good. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, the accent comes out. When I get real passionate about something or trying to do it. But, for the most part, when I'm announcing and everything, I try to keep my voice as clear as possible and make sure that I enunciate every word. Yeah, Patrick, you bring up a good thing. Did we really see a prime Ali? And I would like to. He was right in his prime when it was taken away. When he was a conscientious objector, and they took the title from him, and he lost those. So I mean, if we're honest about it, probably not. Because you just can't lose those years and expect to be as great as you could have been. But I think overall, if we're looking at it, what Ali did when he came back, and regaining the title and all that stuff, I think that, I mean, his second career was better than most people's entire careers, right? And I think him doing that gives him that little separation or that edge over Mike Tyson. And Marciano, yeah, he was 49-0. Yeah, he had 43 knockouts. He, undefeated. He got out of boxing and actually stayed out, which is a rarity. Most fighters come back and wind up getting hurt, knocked out. Larry Holmes, comes to mind, really quick when I think of that stuff. And G Funky Boxing, what's happening, man? Let's see. Yeah. Oh, Patrick, I'm not going to take that away either. Tyson Fury's comeback has been amazing. And I should be drinking water other than pop because pop's not good for talking. But Tyson Fury's comeback is amazing. And it's in his prime. So he took that year and a half or so, maybe 2 years off. 2.5. It was a bit of a time, and he was at the absolute pinnacle. And he had just beaten. You just want me to keep saying how he beat Klitschko. I'm on to you now, Patrick. I see how this is, but he was at the top of the world, but he wasn't happy. And he had to reevaluate, and he went into that huge depression. And the fact that he came back, I told you, I hated him. When I watched one of my favorite fighters of all time, Vladimir Klitschko, go down, I was like, mother. Oh, I cursed his name. But seeing him come back, I will cheer his name. And I think his comeback is one of the best for the ages. If there was ever something to really show somebody overcoming, and I mean, depression is a form of a mental illness, and he's able to overcome that. But tell people it's a work in progress, and he's always, he has days where he's down, but he, still finds that motivation or looks for that one thing that can kind of pick him up. It's a beautiful story, man. That dude is, yeah, he's just moving up the list. Yeah, pop. I said it, D-style. Pop. You call soda? Or what do people call it? Coke down south, 3 years off. It's not soda. It's pop. Craig. Hey. Glad to be back. I hope, and I'm looking forward to staying back and trying to put out a video or at least a video a week, especially with the bigger fights, and then going live a couple times a month, to do rundowns and stuff. And I think we'll, maybe I'll get a list of things that people want to talk about and kind of write those down, and then, have that for a discussion, like I'll just put up a video. Hey, throw up some things you'd like to discuss or talk about in a live chat to where you can actually ask those questions, and I'll be a little bit more prepared for those questions so I can give an educated opinion on the stuff. There are a lot of great fighters out there that I just don't or haven't watched as much as I used to. And I'm getting back into that and checking them out. And this Spence Garcia fight was definitely one that piqued me up. And I was like, we're getting this on. We're going to do this, and it's going to be great. Let's see. Bro, where have you been? And now we get a live show. Well, yeah, and then people are talking about doing a podcast. I got one of my buddies who does a lot of working out and stuff, and he wants to kind of do, he's Big Red, I'm Big Ragu, the Big Red Ragu show or something like that. So we're looking at kind of starting a podcast thing, where we talk about all sports and stuff like that, not just boxing. We'll go into MMA. We'll go into, he likes basketball. Dude, I'm 5'10". I don't do basketball well, but I bet I could probably coach it. Look at all the Italian basketball coaches that are pretty good, But so he's talked about doing something like that, maybe even going out there on a political side. Let's see. Great to see you back. Where you been? Yeah. Tyson is a traveler. Yes. And he calls himself, I won't use the phrase, but, he calls himself the Gypsy King and stuff. And I know some people can take offense to that, but he calls himself that. Yeah, he travels around. He does his thing. And what he does is absolutely fantastic. Your grandparents, whoa, Patrick, your grandparents parked their old wagons next to each other in the fields. That's really cool. When you have that, that kind of old school stuff, that type, I think the bonds there that they have, that those people, when they went around, is just awesome. Speaking of heavyweights and mental illnesses, what is your take on Wilder and all his reasons for losing? Well, when you get whooped that bad, you've got to find a reason, and his team has basically over the years done everything they can to set him up for failure when he finally fought a fighter. And let me rewind that a little bit. When you only have one trick and that gets taken away, what do? There's a reason why coaches and teams are very successful, is they're able to take that one thing you do good away. What can you do now? What do you have? Wilder doesn't have a punishing jab like a Holmes or some of the other guys, that can just fire it out there. Tyson had a great jab too. He doesn't have that. He doesn't have the setup. He's not a counterpuncher. So he's not waiting and slipping stuff. You don't see a lot of head movement with that man. His footwork is atrocious. If you watch that fight, the second he goes backward, he short steps back. He never has balance, and he was getting knocked down by body shots that maybe shouldn't have knocked him down had he had actually been able to keep his thing. So I think with the mental illness thing, I think it's coming to grips with the fact that, everything around him, everything that he had built himself up to be, is gone now. He's not the bronze bomber anymore. Well, he could still starch out a lot of guys. He's just not starching out the main guy. So he's not going to be the main guy anymore. And in fact, I believe Wilder is older than Fury. So, as long as Fury sticks to the clean living now and doesn't fall back and stuff like that, I don't see anybody beating that man for another 7 years. Yeah, because that'll only put him at 38 years old or something like that. Chicano Prophet, hey, what's up, man? Salute to you too. I'm out. All right, Patrick, you take her easy, man. Beard's looking good. Might be time to do a beard shaving bet on the fall. Pacquiao makes me lose my beard one time. Could have been more, but I wisened up, and I was really watching him fight, and taking it in and putting biases aside, or what I wanted to have happen aside, and actually seeing a fighter for a fighter, right? And that's what I always try to do, is to make sure I am as honest as possible. And there might be, maybe D-Style will be able to grow something on his face, and we'll do a thing, or I'll try and get a hold of some of the old school guys, that maybe are still around doing predictions, and we'll do a beard versus beard or something like that. Yeah, definitely look into the podcast so we can do that. What about the Wilder PR disaster? They focus more on making Joshua and the matchroom look bad. Yeah. That was the whole thing with Wilder and his team. When we talked about it, everything they did is they set up on. They never had a plan B for anything, and when stuff went south, it went south. It never came back, and they just fell apart. And you see that a lot with people that, put all their eggs in that one basket, and if that gets upset, they got nothing. So, the Wilder team and what they did with not Fury, but Joshua and all that, and them not being able to get something squared away, and I think all that was show. I think they kind of were hedging their bets. I mean, there's a reason why the Wilder team took the Fury fight. You got a guy that ballooned up to 400 pounds, basically, and had all these problems, and he seemed like an easy mark. And then they got in that ring, and then they realized it wasn't easy. And then they thought they got out of it, with that right hand that dropped Fury, and then he got back up, and those eggs started falling out of the basket. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, my number one thing didn't do it. And then they got a Fury that was actually in shape, and now they're realizing maybe they should have fought Joshua because they missed out on a mega fight there. Let's see. Oh, Damien, what'd you say? Anthony Joshua Pula fight. There's only one fight to be made in the heavyweight division. There's only one fight that should be happening right now, and that's Tyson Fury against Anthony Joshua. Any other fight, any other thing that's being done, forget it. It's not worth it. It's not worth, really putting any massive interest in right now. And there are some upcoming heavyweights that, maybe we can look at, but I don't know. But I want to get back to the AJ Pula fight, Damien. I'll address that either in another video or the next time we go live. Does that work for you? Okay. Well, man, we're over an hour now. I want to say I think we're good. What are we? Adversity, yes. Guinness 1100. This is exact. Adversity does not build character; it reveals character. It shows what somebody's made about. And then when Fury rose up, it got real, and you saw his real character. You saw all the excuses that they tried to make. As soon as that fight ended, they tried to say it was a long count, it was all this, whatever. And a fighter can only react to what the referee's doing. And if the referee starts on a slow count, okay, you can maybe blame the ref. But Fury could have got up earlier, much like Buster Douglas when he fought Tyson, could have gotten up earlier. He was listening to the count. He got up when the count said it. And Wilder had nothing for that. Yeah, I'm going to keep it up, Damien. Damien, I just put out a video today. If you want to go look at that, that is my prediction video for the Errol Spence, Danny Garcia fight. And, I opened that up. I'm going to sing in all my videos. Yeah, I'll get some newer stuff in there. I think I was going to do the Rain on Me or something. But, it didn't strike me at the moment. I go with that. All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for hopping on, for giving me any of your time. I truly appreciate it. It's very humbling that you're willing to spend time with me still, and I hope to be able to continue this and keep all this rolling. You stick around. I'll start putting these videos out. Okay. And I'll keep you informed. And when we start the podcast up, I'll give you a heads up for that. And we'll go from there. All right. Well, hey, again, stay safe, stay healthy. Keep punching, right? I'm out. Yeah.